The Barsoom Books by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Barsoom was the first science fiction series written by American Edgar Rice Burroughs, better known as the author of the Tarzan book series. The first Barsoom tale, imaginatively staged on the planet Mars, was serially published in magazine form as Under the Moons of Mars in 1912 and published as the novel A Princess of Mars in 1917. Various sequels followed over the next 3 decades. Barsoom is the name that Burroughs gives to his romanticized stories of a dying planet Mars, inspired by other writers of the fledgling science fiction genre, sparked by astronomical discoveries of the 19th century. Popularizers of science theorized that Mars was at a later stage of evolution than Earth, and therefore much drier. These ideas had been developed in books such as L'Etier du Ciel by 1884 by Camille Flammarion, which contained illustrations of a planet covered with canals. Burroughs says that he based his vision of Mars on that of Flammarion. John Carter, the hero of Burroughs' Mars books, is transported to Mars in a way similar to that described by Flammarion in Urania, 1889. Where a man from Earth is transported to Mars as an astral body and awakes to a lower gravity, 2 moons, strange plants and animals, and several races of advanced humans. Burroughs began writing his Barsoom books in the second half of 1911 and produced 1 volume a year between 1911 and 1914. 7 more were produced between 1921 and 1941. Several of the Barsoom books were first published serially in such magazines as the All Story magazine and Amazing Stories. The final Barsoom tale was a novella, Skeleton Men of Jupiter, published in February 1943, and the final book, John Carter of Mars, was published posthumously in 1964. Collectively, this series of the Barsoom novels have also been referred to as the Martian series. The first Mars books introduces John Carter, a Civil War veteran prospecting for gold in Arizona who runs afoul of the Apache Indians. While hiding in a sacred cave, he is mysteriously transported to Mars, called Barsoom by its inhabitants. Carter finds that he has great strength and superhuman agility in this new environment as a result of lesser gravity and lower atmospheric pressure. He soon falls in with a nomadic tribe of green Martians, the Tharks, as the planet's warlike, 6-limbed, green-skinned inhabitants are known. Carter soon rises to a higher position in the tribe and earns the respect and friendship of Tarkus, one of the chiefs. Carter later becomes embroiled in political affairs of the warring red and green Martians, having rescued the Princess of Helium from the Green Men. After 9 years of life on Mars with his beloved princess, he desperately attempts to remedy the planet's damaged atmosphere, only to awaken back on Earth. In the second book of the Martian series, The Gods of Mars, soldier and adventurer John Carter tells of his return to the planet Mars to be reunited with his love, the Martian princess Dejah Thoris. With his great friend Tarkus, mighty Jetan of Tharks, Carter sets out in search of his princess, but Dejah Thoris has vanished, and Carter becomes trapped in the legendary Eden of Mars, from which none has ever escaped alive. As the Warlords of Mars opens, John Carter's wife, the Princess Dejah Thoris, and 2 other women are imprisoned near the Temple of the Sun. Kidnapped by Carter's antagonists, they are taken north to the polar regions ruled by the Yellow Martians, pursued by Carter. He engineers a dramatic rescue invasion by the Green Martians and escapes with his wife aboard an airship, thus earning the title Warlord of Barsoom. The 4th book of the series, Thuvia, Maid of Mars, is a planetary romance featuring the adventures of Carter's son, Carthoris, Prince of Helium, and his unrequited love interest, Thuvia, the Princess Tharth. The telepathic Lotharians make their first appearance in this novel, which features various monsters, Martian spacecraft, and sci-fi technology as Carthoris rescues the kidnapped princess and then takes the blame for events. This novel first appeared in magazines in 1916 and was later published as a novel in 1920. The fifth book, The Chessmen of Mars, features the adventures of Carter's daughter, Tara, a princess of Helium, who is courted by Jetan, Prince of Gathol, a neighboring city-state of Barsoom. He rescues Tara from the Chaldaeans, and they flee to Manator, where they are taken captive and forced to fight to the death in an arena as part of a twisted version of the chess-like game of Jetan. In the sixth book, The Mastermind of Mars, a new hero, unrelated to Carter, appears. Ulysses Paxton, an Earthman who travels to Mars by astral projection, is mentored by mad scientist Ras Thavas, there renamed Vadvaro, and trained to conduct brain transplant surgeries. In the course of events, Paxton rescues a princess, Valadia. This science fantasy novel was published in 1928. The seventh book, A Fighting Man of Mars, a story narrated by Ulysses Paxton, transmitted to Earth via the Gridley wave, tells the story of Tanhadron, a poor man on Mars whose love is spurned by the wealthy Sonoma Tora. When she is kidnapped, he battles various monsters to rescue her. Along the way, he encounters mad scientist Ford Tak, and also rescues Tavia, a slave girl who is actually a princess. The eighth book, Swords of Mars, features John Carter, the Mars series' first hero, and his private war against the Guild of Assassins. Carter travels undercover to the city of Zodanga to investigate the Guild from within. Meanwhile, the Guild kidnaps Carter's wife, the Princess Dejah Thoris of Helium, fleeing to the Martian moon Thoria, Phobos, pursued by Carter and his allies. There, all are captured by the sun-worshipping Taurids, from whom they escape with great difficulty. The Synthetic Men of Mars, ninth book of Burroughs' Mars series, is narrated by a new hero, Vardaj, a warrior of Helium and member of John Carter's personal guard. Carter and Daj go in search of Ras Thavas, the mad scientist of a previous novel, and find him in the dead city of Morbus building synthetic men who plot to conquer Barsoom and have their brains transplanted into normal bodies. Carter and allies defeat the synthetic invasion with great difficulty and also rescue Carter's wife. The 10th book of the Barsoom series, Lana of Gathol, is a collection of 4 short stories featuring Carter's granddaughter, Lana of Gathol, as the damsel in distress. These science fantasy stories first appeared in Amazing Stories magazine in 1941 and were collected into a book published in 1948. Stories include The Ancient Dead, The Black Pirates of Barsoom, Escape on Mars, and Invisible Men of Mars. John Carter of Mars, 12th and final book of Burroughs' Barsoom series, contains 2 stories, John Carter and the Giant of Mars, and Skeleton Men of Jupiter, previously published in Amazing Stories magazine, published as a book by Canaveral Press in 1964, 14 years after the death of Burroughs. These stories are not highly regarded by critics due to weak and unresolved plotting. The stories are science fantasy, belonging to the subgenre of planetary romance, which features elements of both science fiction and fantasy. Planetary romance stories are similar to sword and sorcery tales, but include scientific elements. They mostly take place on the surface of an alien world, frequently include sword fighting, monsters, supernatural elements such as telepathic abilities, and civilizations similar to Earth in an ancient pre-technological era, with the inclusion of dynastic or religious social structures. Spacecraft may appear but are not central to the stories. These series may also be classified as the closely related genre of Sword and Planet, which consists mainly of sword and sorcery stories that take place on another planet. Burroughs describes the Martian year as comprising 687 Martian days, each 24 hours and 37 minutes long. Burroughs presumably derived this from numbers published by Lowell, but erroneously substituted the number of 24-hour Earth days in the Martian year, rather than the number of 24.6-hour Martian days, which is only 669. In a 1926 article published in the London Daily Express, a dispatch on Mars, Burroughs explained his ideas about the Martian environment. He assumed that Mars was formerly identical to the Earth, conjecturing that a similar evolutionary development of fauna would have taken place. He referenced winds, snows, and marshes supposedly observed by astronomers as evidence of an atmosphere, and believed that the Martian wastes had been irrigated, suggesting that an advanced civilization existed on the planet. Barsoomians distribute their scarce water supplies via a worldwide system of canals, controlled by quarreling city-states at the junctures thereof. The idea of Martian canals stems from telescopic observations by 19th century astronomers who, beginning with Giovanni Schiaparelli in 1877, believed that they saw networks of lines on the planet. Schiaparelli called them canali, meaning channels, but mistranslated in English as canals. During the time Burroughs wrote his first Barsoom stories, the theory was put forward by a number of prominent scientists, notably Lowell, that these were huge engineering works constructed by an intelligent race. This view inspired much science fiction. The thinning Barsoomian atmosphere is artificially replenished by an atmosphere plant on whose function all life on the planet is dependent. Burroughs The Barsoomian races resemble Homo sapiens in most respects, except for being oviparous, laying eggs separately and yet mammalian, while the Martians have skins of various colors, red, green, yellow, black, and white. Their bodies differ in some cases from traditional humans. They roam the planet naked and dress for warmth only at the poles. There is only one spoken language, but a variety of writing systems. The traditional Martian lifespan of 1,000 is based on the customary pilgrimage down the river Is, taken by virtually all Martians by that age. None return from this pilgrimage because it leads to almost certain death at the hands of ferocious creatures. The long lifespan is attributed to the Martian environment. They communicate amongst themselves telepathically and have various other telepathic abilities. For example, the Lotharians in Thuvia, made of Mars, are able to project images of warfare that can kill by suggestion. Burroughs' Martian novels have inspired a variety of science fiction books, plays, movies, TV shows, role play, and video games, comic strips, and comic books, including Disney's 2012 movie John Carter. See our links for the books below. Thank you.